Bookshop. I'm Z. This is my store. It's very exciting to be here. Thank you for the support. We have lots of events like this, so please come back. We have usually 3 to 5 events a week. We have a mailing list that you can join on zibbymedia.com, and please follow us on social at Zibby's Bookshop so you can always see what we're up to and have more great people like the fabulous panelists we have today. So first of all, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, very exciting.
This is really huge. It's such a momentous occasion. So I'll just read. I know you all know him, but I'll read it anyway. Michael Chessler has been a writer, producer, director, and showrunner of numerous television shows. He has developed pilots for all the major networks, some of which made it to air. He's a native of Los Angeles, where he still lives. Meghan Daum is the author of 7 books, most recently, The Catastrophe Hour, selected essays. Her other books included My Misspent Youth, The Problem with Everything, and the award-winning The Unspeakable and Other Subjects of Discussion. She's also the host of the Unspeakable podcast, soon to be renamed the Unspeakeasy podcast, and founder of the Unspeakeasy, a multifaceted community and forum devoted to viewpoint diversity and free expression. You can visit Meghan's Substack for the latest links to all of her work.
Thank you.
Anyway, congratulations, and please enjoy the discussion. We'll have a signing afterwards, and take it away.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. Appreciate it. And thank you, Meghan, for agreeing to do this event with me because you're the best.
I'm so honored. I'm so excited because we've known each other for so long. And I've always looked up to you because you are a writer that actually can live from writing. And since you've been a very successful television writer for a long time, but I know you have a background. You're a big reader and you're academic, and so this seems like a very natural place for you to land. So anyway, by the way, guys, just so you know, we're going to talk for about 30 minutes, and then we'll take questions for about 15 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yes.
That's.
And then signing for the after that. Okay, that's how it's going to go. And the people on the live stream, they can't get their book signed. So. Why don't you tell us how did this begin? I mean, you've been a really busy writer for many, many decades. So what possibly possessed you to try to do this project?
This is something I've always wanted to do since I was in high school. I mean, I wanted to be a writer since I was in elementary school. And I was just waylaid by various things in life, including a pretty busy career in television, which there's high highs and low lows. And in 2019, I had one of the most needlessly exhausting experiences of my career, making a very frothy television show. There was just so much behind the scenes stuff going on that I was just like, I don't know if I ever want to do this again. Anyway, then COVID happened. So that was the perfect, not COVID was a tragedy. I don't mean anything like that, but it was for me, it ended up being an opportunity to step back and reassess and what do I want to do with my life. So my very dear friend, Maggie Welsh, said, you've been complaining for years about the miseries of writing for television and your frustrations. You need to do something to reconnect with your joy of writing.
Oh, I thought she was going to say you can up the ante of your misery.
Make it worse. Make it worse.
Okay, sorry.
So that is when you come into the story because she said, take a writing workshop. So I asked you if you could help me find a good writing workshop, and you found a fantastic one, which was taught by Daphne Merkin. And this was kind of like the era when Zoom was novel and things were just starting on Zoom, but it was a Zoom workshop. So I could do one with a writer that was based in New York. And it was a really great experience, and it was short. And what happened is I wrote a short story. So that short story ended up becoming the first chapter of Mess. So the thing that I felt very lucky about is I didn't sit down, look at a computer screen and say, I'm going to write a novel. What happened is I wrote this short story, which came very easily, and it was a lot of fun to write, and it was like a respite from television writing. And then in the class, they asked me, is this the beginning of a novel? And the minute they asked me that, even though I hadn't been thinking of it as such, I immediately saw how it would lay out as a novel, that it would be fun to write. And I was like, damn it, I'm going to do it. So, and then COVID continued to happen, and I had time to do it, and I did. So there you go.
Well, I mean, it's great. It's a very episodic novel. I
Yes.
mean, you can bring your TV writing chops to the project. You have an incredible advantage over a lot of prose writers who not only cannot do structure but have no interest in structure, I find. So this is not a problem. You were able to do this. And
Well, part of me
nicely.
was like I wanted to like box up all the television stuff. Like Jane, my protagonist, I'm compartmentalized. I want things organized. So I wanted to like be a real departure, which in many ways it was. But I think it is true. I hope that some of my television experience was helpful in. I do like a story, and I do like a structure.
Yeah.
that is important to me, and I think entertaining does not mean that you're not also have something important. Cannot explore important issues at the same. Literary. Thank you. That's the word I'm looking for. I mean, I think a lot of the great novels all have really propulsive stories.
Yeah. Well, it's the serialized novels.
Yes. Yeah. Like Dickens was serialized. And yeah. So anyway, that was that's how it started.
So this is a great concept. It's about a personal organizer who's not very organized personally, but she does this for a job. So, and I want you to walk us through the various characters, but why don't you start with Jane, who's the protagonist?
Yes.
Sort of you just told us your origin story for this book. What is her origin story?
Okay.
And where do we go from there?
So my niece, Christina Yoon, who is sitting right there, is an incredible personal organizer. Oh. And I was working with a very chaotic actress at the time who was moving. Is Tori Spelling. Tori knows all about this. She's fine. So I was working with her. Tori was moving. I was like, my niece might be very helpful helping you organize and unpack during your move. So Tori and Christina spent one day together. I think it went well, but it only lasted one day. But the idea of it, Christina is nothing like Jane. The character Kelsey, who's this sort of like bubbly actress who was on a hit TV show in the aughts, there's certainly elements of Tori in her, but it's not Tori. But the idea of these two people who are very, very different in a space where you're sorting through things, which is a really intimate thing in a way it can be, because the way people endow their possessions with meaning and.
Well, I mean, there's a whole show. The fact that there's Hoarders is a show that's in its, I don't know what season at this point. There's tell you a lot. Yeah.
There are so many shows about it, and the Home Edit and Marie Kondo, that whole phenomenon. And that was something that when Marie Kondo's book first came out, I thought it was very interesting, and I loved how she sort of distilled it into this idea of objects almost have this animism to them because you endow them with this various things. I mean, not every object, not every person, but I think it's very interesting how different people, their relationships to the objects and material goods in their life.
Do you want to read a little bit?
Yes. Okay. I will read this is a little brief passage about the origin story of Jane's career.
And we should say this is set in Los Angeles. We're going to find out all this. Sorry.
Yeah. Well,
okay. Anything we need to know before?
Well, it's just, what in the book, Jane organizes in various homes, and every chapter you go into a new home. Well, not always a new home. Some homes you go into more than one chapter. And she is dealing with her own personal stuff and kind of bouncing and reflecting off of the various people and personalities she meets, either for better or for worse, or, somewhere in between. Okay, so the one thing Jane's string of habitually distracted bosses could not help but notice was that Jane was supremely competent and organized, her desk immaculate, everything in its proper place. She was undeniably expert at compartmentalizing. When one insufferable boss asked Jane for help organizing her home, she discovered the work suited her. She enjoyed creating order out of chaos, and she liked the window into all these people's worlds, even if she was often startled by what she saw. Jane trepidatiously considered changing careers to professional organizer. It was her boyfriend, Teddy, who encouraged her to give it a go. What did she have to lose? She was young, she should try new things. She could always go back to the entertainment industry. He even offered to help design her website. His encouragement was both very welcome and very alien, for Jane had never gotten much from her parents, or from herself for that matter. Teddy's belief in her had made her feel uncharacteristically light and free and ready to try new things. So, with jumbled feelings of regret and relief, of sadness and elation, Jane quit showbiz and started her own organizing business. Now, more than a year in, it was still strangely intimate to sort through other people's belongings, things endowed with meaning, as if all aspirations, beauty, wealth, health, intelligence, purpose, could be manifested by owning the right stuff. Jane was fascinated by individual preferences and predilections. There was no accounting for taste, she'd think, but then, yes, there is, and I'm keeping a ledger.
Thank you. I want to get into some of the themes of this, but I think that's like super interesting, especially like these days in Los Angeles, and especially over here. But before we do that, why don't you walk us through the main characters? There's Jane has a love interest boyfriend. I mean, I guess, so Teddy.
Yeah, so Jane, in terms of her own personal stories that she's trying to reconcile and deal with, is her boyfriend Teddy. They're very opposite. Jane is very, controlled and organized and type A, and Teddy's very relaxed and lives in the moment. And he's very into the gig economy. He drives, drive Uber one day, does a catering gig. He's jamming with his band. So they're very opposite, and it's not clear if it's gonna work. So that reaches a crisis pretty soon. And then Jane has a very fraught relationship with her family too. And the family that lives in Chicago, but she's, constantly kind of navigating that. She has a brother who's disabled, and she has a lot of guilt around that. And in her childhood, her mother really, as I think people that have disabled siblings have experienced, I know people in this situation, it can really take a lot of the energy of the family and impact the family dynamic dramatically. So those are the main things. But she's also she has coworkers on a lot of the gigs, and she passes through the homes of a lot of very LA types. Not everybody's not in the entertainment business. There's like an interior designer, there's a tech bro, just different kinds of people, and has different interactions that are very informative to her.
Okay, and we don't want to give away too much, but I mean, do you want to tell us a little bit about?
Well, give
us a few scenes or taste of it.
I'll give you a taste. This is the last passage I'll read, and it's a minor spoiler, but I don't think it's going to be that much of a shock. So this is after Jane this is in the first chapter. She spent the day organizing Kelsey, this bubbly television star's house, and Kelsey's just been, pretty hapless and has all these things, doesn't know what to do with them. So Jane arrives home. Jane set down her purse, then unzipped the garment bag, revealing a Chanel suit, a matching jacket and skirt made from a beautiful tweed of pink, blue, and black. It was impeccably tailored and perfectly understated. Classic, iconic. Kelsey didn't like wearing it, but Jane would. Kelsey rescued dogs, Jane rescued garments. In its new home, the Chanel will be cataloged and cherished. Jane considered this assisted decluttering, nothing more. Kelsey wouldn't miss the suit. In fact, Jane had done her a favor by relieving her of the burden of its negative associations. In any event, what Kelsey didn't know wouldn't hurt her. She held up the jacket to her face and inhaled. Kelsey had claimed she never wore it, yet it reeked of her fragrance, a cloying rose vanilla olfactory assault. It was dizzying, it was disgusting, it was intoxicating, it was intolerable. Jane briskly zipped up the garment bag, ferried out the back door, and into the detached garage that had been converted into what the landlord referred to as an accessory dwelling unit. Teddy deemed it a guest cottage and had suggested they Airbnb it, an idea that horrified Jane. Now the space belonged to her. She called it her workshop. Technically, it was a workshop because she used it to experiment with different organizational rubrics, but really, it was her sanctum. She turned on the lights, admiring her carefully curated collection of clothes and shoes, all rigorously sorted by season, by formality, by color. The room was filled floor to ceiling with shelves, closets, drawers. Everything was meticulously labeled, even though Jane knew by heart the placement of every object. The garments were at peace, hanging gracefully in neat rows or folded into happy geometry, organized by hue into a series of rainbows, or securely nestled in the appropriate boxes or bins. While all of this may not have sparked joy, that was a ludicrously high bar, it sparked calm and contentment.
Thank you. So your descriptions of the stuff and the brand names and the labels and even just like other stuff in the natural world is so sharp. It's so
well,
vivid. It's
you.
really fun. And we should also say this is a satire. Like this is very funny.
Oh, well, thank you.
There's some stuff I LOL'd several times, but I mean, I want to talk about like people's relationship to their material objects, because that's really what the book is about. And I mean, it's amazing. So many of the characters here, they don't even know what they have.
Yes.
And that is like I mean, I guess it's an American thing, but it's also like a very like last 20 or 30 years kind of thing, just because of cheap goods and people just accumulate things thoughtlessly in a way that they really didn't used to.
Well, I'm thinking about what you wrote about and have been talking about since, Meghan lost her home in the Altadena fire. And, when you were talking about how so many of the what it meant to you losing these things and how some of it was, disposable. You could order it from Amazon, but some of it was not.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, there was this moment, I mean, I've talked about this on my podcast and elsewhere, like when I evacuated very early. I mean, we didn't actually get any evacuation notice in Altadena, but I mean, I left never thinking the house would burn down. Like that was the last thing. I left because I knew the electricity was going to go off at some point, and I thought, well, I'll just get out of here. Although my neighbor had come over and knocked on the door and said, like, gather your papers. It's like, what's papers? What are your papers? But I had this moment where I was standing in my office, which is the crappiest room in the whole house, as it always is. And it was filled with stuff. And I was kind of looking around and I thought, well, okay, what in here, is there anything in here that like I couldn't order on Amazon tomorrow if I had to? And like, I just couldn't conceive. I was like, I guess not. I guess I could, I guess I could just replace this. But if I had any real thought that I was going to lose it, of course I would have the calculation would have been completely different. But the fact that I spend 90% of my time in the crappiest room of the house where all the junk is, if I had been standing in my living room where like actual pieces of art were and my books and actual things, it might have been different. But I do think people, they kind of like, they cozy up to kind of their worst stuff sometimes. Yeah. And a lot of people I spoke with had that, or they would say, oh, I grabbed my things and, because from the fire, and they took their worst things. They took their cheapest, took like 2 pairs of Old Navy cargo pants. Like, why? It's so weird.
Yeah. The whole idea, we never packed go bags, which we should have, because we live in the hills and we were evacuated briefly one night because of the Runyon Canyon fire, whatever they called it. But, it's very daunting to think like, well, what do I need? Well, maybe I don't need anything. I mean, that's the kind of thing. And I mean, haven't people told you that there's a sense of almost.
Yeah. Well, that was another thing is like, I talked to people and a lot of people had this sort of immediate, like, this feeling of exhilaration just momentarily, because a lot of people are in a really tortured relationship with their stuff.
Yes.
I mean, I had the conversation a lot, like, oh, I was getting ready to declutter. Oh my God. And even people were talking about how they couldn't figure out what to take because there was literally they were like, I can't deal with this. And so it solved that problem for a lot of people.
Which is, I mean, I think that's what I hope people will find interesting about what Jane is going through, is that she's a very self-aware and self-conscious person, but she also obviously has some remarkable blind spots that she doesn't see what's going on with her. But I think we're all dealing with, like, we live in a world that's geared towards consumption, and there's, advertising that buying X will solve your problems. And there's just sort of like this voracious appetite. And we certainly live in the most affluent country in the world. But is this stuff making us happy, or is it getting in the way, or what? How do you find the right balance? Like, I mean, I don't think we all need to become monks and live in austerity. Although,
not
again,
bad.
I know
actually, I've been living on austerity. It's actually pretty great. So yeah. So I mean, but one of the characters is like a child, like a teen influencer or child influencer, and that's a case where they're just getting swag all the time. Like, and they have to their relationship to the stuff is that they have to like promote it, and so like they're feeding off of it. They need it, but it's also taking up a lot of space and like kind of gross.
Yes, which is, I kind of think, a real excess of consumerism, and the whole way that like everything is commodified now. And as much as we all love social media, I feel like that's big culprit in terms of, I mean, certainly the whole influencer phenomenon, which is kind of insane.
Yeah. Are you very organized?
So I would say that most people close to me would say I'm pretty organized, but I personally, I don't feel very organized because there are certain projects that I have not been able to tackle and do. And because it's really,
Like what?
well, okay, like Christina helped me with my photographs. I had them all digitized and scanned. But the final step was something I would really need to sit down and do myself, which is to go through them all and sort them into the appropriate chronology or folders. And it's just so daunting because those each photograph carries so much association that it's like it really, really gets exhausting. So for me, that's one of the mountains I've yet to climb. I really wanted to digitize everything and throw all my papers away, and I haven't been able to do that. I mean, even some papers from like old school papers and stuff that I'm like, well, I should scan it before I throw it away. But so it's sort of like this weird personal archive that I think is like really stupid.
And then you have to ask yourself, like, is somebody going to care about this?
Yes,
like, am I doing, like, is my school going to be really upset if I don't scan this and send it? Like, there's a space waiting for you, and they're
absolutely
in the library.
Nobody will care, and Mark, my husband, will be happy if I get rid of it all. But it's there.
I mean, I'm trying to think, like, you set this in before COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, that must have been a deliberate decision, because I think this is one of these things that's really hard for anybody doing creative work, fiction anyway.
Yeah.
Like, do we deal with the pandemic or not? And it's 9/11 had a kind of a similar kind of phenomenon. I remember I was writing a novel. I guess I was writing it right after 9/11, but it was like big. I didn't know whether or not to deal with it, because it was weird if you didn't, but then it was like if you did, you were biting off this huge thing. So how did you make that decision?
Well, I was writing it. Most of the writing was done in 2021, so we were still in peak pandemic. So there was I didn't see the other side of it and what that was going to look like. And there was something about having it all take place right before the pandemic that actually felt very right to me. And I mean, if you read the book to its ending, you'll see why that sort of like something lines up that will be an interesting challenge for Jane's for the next chapter of Jane's life.
So I want to talk about unlikable narrators and unlikable characters.
Yes.
I mean, you've certainly written those kinds of characters for the screen.
Yes.
For television, and gotten away with it, and that's been a successful kind of endeavor. So how has it been to write? I mean, did you? I didn't find Jane unlikable at all. I thought she was funny. I mean, I didn't, but like that's us. Like we're not normal. I mean, but I mean, it sounds like that has been. By the way, never go on Goodreads or anything.
Oh God,
those aren't real people. Those are bots.
Yeah,
that's not real.
I'm not.
But insofar as a few people might have thought that Jane was unlikable, what are you doing? How's that making you think about this?
A couple things. Like, first of all, I think it's something that they ascribe to female characters and almost maybe never to a male character. Like a male character would be complicated or bellicose or I don't know what, or difficult, dark or difficult.
Yeah.
So I think there's something very sexist and gendered about that word sometimes. And I think when I work in television, I think like when I hear unlikable as a note, that's kind of like, well, what is behind it? Well, maybe you don't understand why they are the way they are. So what my hope is that reading this book, yes, Jane can be a little prickly and judgmental, but hopefully you understand why she's that way, and you're also aware that she's that way, and she wants to change it and become happy, and that's really damn hard.
She's
hard.
A perfectionist. She's a always trying to improve herself.
Yes. And others.
Yeah, but I mean, it's interesting that, is this a female character thing? I mean, I feel like it's almost gotten worse in the last couple of years. But even if you're writing for TV, I guess, like, if you have an unlikable character, the actor can sort of make up for that.
Yes.
There's a lot. You're looking at the actor and you have a relationship with that.
Yes.
Person.
You can have,
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's an interesting thing, but I think I want characters that are interesting. More like likable isn't necessarily interesting to me. And I guess for me, my personal definition of likable is they're understandable, like they're cohesive as a person, and I understand why they do what they do, whether I agree with it or disagree with it. I mean, that interesting is more important than likable to me, I guess is what I would say.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about this earlier. So I've only written one novel in my life.
Which is hilarious. It's a really fun novel.
Well, and we were actually, God, was that like 20 years ago? We were trying to develop it for a long time. Yeah. but my character was, well, first of all, this novel would never be published today, like just ever, never, ever. But she was just kind of, she was zany, but she was very myopic and sort of obnoxious, and it was like a fish out of water story. So she was really like snobby with respect to where she was and everything. But, you know, I remember, you know, I had the first draft and I'd sold it. And then, you know, then you're like so excited that you sold the novel. And then the editor's like, well, now you have to rewrite the whole thing. But there was a lot of like, oh, can't you let us know that Lucinda was the character, that she knows that she's being a jerk in this moment? So there was a lot of like writing in, like, I felt really bad what I was about to say, and then like, blah, like the horrible thing, you know? And somehow that was okay. But I think it weakens. It
can.
Back on that,
I think it's a fine line to walk. I felt very lucky in that I ended up with an editor, Sarah Nelson at HarperCollins, who liked the character, likable, and helped me protect her, because one of the joys of writing, I wasn't self-conscious in the way I am. Television, you're writing for an audience. First, you're writing for the executives and the actor, and then ultimately the viewing audience. Whereas this was like, I'm just going to want to like let it rip and write what I want to write. And then it was helpful getting feedback from friends, and then from a very careful read from my editor, which doesn't happen that often anymore in the publishing world. So I feel very lucky that like I felt like my debut novel was delivered with a lot of care, and I was very fortunate.
And you really developed the relationship between Jane and Teddy from the first draft, right?
Yes, that was one of a through line that I really tried to lean into more and clarify. And I think it just says so much about both of them, actually, but especially, you know, Jane trying to allow herself to be unguarded, to be in love, to experience joy, all these things that are difficult for her.
We're going to take questions in a few minutes, but I wanted to ask you about Los Angeles. This is really kind of a love/hate letter to Los Angeles. Yes. There's a great line in the book where Jane says, I feel like I'm hate reading my life.
Yeah, I hate watching my life.
Hate watching my life, which is so great. You're a little bit like, it's your descriptions of Los Angeles are, it's obvious that you're from here, you know, it's obvious like this is your city, and there was a lot of stuff in traffic. There's a lot of, Jane does not, she's got some road rage a little bit going.
She keeps it under control, but yes, it's a challenge we all live through here now.
Yeah. So, I mean, did that just kind of come naturally? Did you think about, oh, how am I going to portray the city?
It came pretty naturally, and I have this sort of like love-hate relationship with LA. I've lived here most of my life. I always fantasize about getting away. I still see the things that I love about LA, but I feel like it's also getting harder and harder to live here. I mean, probably in most urban environments for so many reasons. But I also just love the dichotomy of LA, where it's like, it's sort of like the world capital of pop culture, and it's bubblegum, and it's poppy, and it's mass entertainment, which is essentially a fairy tale. Yeah. And to me, this is maybe like, there's the grim fairy tale too. Like, you want to see like the real, the what's underneath all of that mythology. And I think it's fun to explore.
Yeah, I love writing about LA because it's such a weird, it's a place of like secret places. It's like such a place where like you can just walk into what looks like, you know, nothing. Like it's like just like a concrete wall, and then behind it is like this amazing restaurant or something with just this incredible garden, and it's just so special.
Requires a lot of intrepid discovery.
Yeah, and I always say it's a hard city to visit, but a great city to live in.
Yes, I think. Yeah. Any potential visitors, you should find a native who's going to be a good guide.
Yeah, and I think a lot of novelists don't write LA very well. I think there's a lot of people who just kind of phone it in, and they think it's all about the entertainment industry. And you've got like, you know, they have the, you know, oh, I'm going to have a scene at the Chateau Marmont or something, and then like call it a day. Like that doesn't make it a LA novel, you know.
Yeah, I hope I can dig a little deeper than that.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we should take some questions. Do you have any? Oh, come on.
Okay.
I'm curious, how much of yourself is written into the protagonist or into the other characters? Like, in writing these many different characters and sort of making them up, like, how much are you figuring yourself out, maybe, or like writing about?
Well, what
How unlikable are you?
Yeah,
What she's
I'm
asking.
definitely super unlikable, no question. What I would say is, you know, what Jane's journey is. I hate that word journey, but it's accurate here. What Jane is trying to solve is something that I'm constantly trying to solve in my life. Like, how can I allow myself to function in a way where I just let myself go and enjoy? Because I am a perfectionist and a control freak, and it's not necessarily the best way to go through life. So that I feel like that I understand Jane's side of that, but I would say there's something in almost every character that, because they all came out of my tiny brain, like there's some piece of me in all of them in some way.
I mean, you made her a woman, actually.
Yeah.
Was that just felt natural? That's who came about in the short story initially. So you went with
Yes,
that.
and that's another interesting thing, because like if I had sat down with a blank page to write a novel, to have a female protagonist, I might have been very nervous about it, given the whole literary climate today. But I mean, first of all, the organizing business is almost entirely women. I mean, it's pretty much entirely women. So I didn't have a problem with it. I've written a lot television. Most of my television career has been writing mostly female characters, that kind of show. So I enjoy doing it, and I hope I'm decent at it. So, but yeah, if I had just sat down with a blank page and I'm going to write a novel, I don't know if I would have decided to have a female protagonist.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm glad.
Thank you.
Who else?
Mike, I'm interested in Jane's boyfriend
Yes.
because he's so different.
Yes.
And is that one of the main conflicts in the book that carries through all the way?
Yes.
And does he become part of the other people's stories as well? And what was just talk about Teddy a little bit.
Well, the book is written third person close, which means that even though it's in the third person, we're pretty much in Jane's perspective and her point of view. So you never go off with Teddy and see his world, but you hear about it because Jane knows about it. And I hope Teddy and Jane are very opposites. And I think something that I like to explore, and I find in my own life, and I think in lots of people's lives, that people who are very opposite can really complement each other and help each other, navigate the world and have a very, strong relationship. And so I think, I don't know how much of Teddy's growth you will see in the novel, but I think he has a little bit of an arc too. And seeing the two of them come together and come apart because of their attraction, repulsion, let's say, I think hopefully is interesting and something that some of us may have experienced.
So she has kind of a love-hate relationship with her life, and we have sort of a love-hate relationship with their relationship. I mean, it sounds like it's all kind of, I don't know the words, but it's intentional that there's kind of a yin and yang to so many things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think there was a question over there.
Hi.
Oh.
Who's your ideal casting for Jane?
Oh, yeah.
We need pictures.
Anybody
To West Side LA.
anybody who's bankable that wants to do it gets an episodic commitment on the air. That's what I was,
Moves the needle.
yeah, anybody that moves the needle. Now that, you know what, there are a lot of, because in the novel, Jane has just recently turned 30, and there's so many actresses in that age range that I just love and are so talented. I never know who wants to do what, but I'm going to think of anybody from like Julia Garner to Joey King to Maude Apatow. I mean, there's a lot of them. I mean, Zendaya. I mean, there's just so many, but I just don't know who would be willing to do it. But hopefully, one of them will figure.
You didn't have somebody in your mind when you were writing?
I'm sorry.
You should walk along Georgina because I see some.
Okay. You can stalk her for me. Okay, thank you.
But did you have somebody in your mind when you were writing, an actress or anything? Like,
No.
do you know what Jane looked like? Did you?
I knew what she looked like, and there's some physical description of her in there, but I didn't want to get too specific because I like the reader to be able to kind of imagine.
Right.
I mean, when I read, sometimes I do cast like what I'm reading. Like I find an actor that matches the character physically or whatever. But No, I did not have it. I was not writing with an actress in mind. I've done enough of that.
Okay. Yeah.
Was it hard structuring the story to take off your sort of television writer hat and put on your novel hat, or did you kind of design the chapters almost like episodes in your mind?
So the irony is, for me, it was a time to just like a respite from the television writing and that grind. But the structure I chose is episodic, but it really, I wasn't thinking about it as such. And in fact, people have asked me, like, did you write this to have your own IP for a television series? It's like, absolutely not. I really just wrote it because I wanted to write a novel. I mean, I hoped I was going to be able to get it published, and I was lucky. And I almost didn't even allow myself to think about that prospect until I was done with the edits. And then I started talking to Chris, my writing partner. There he is. Chris, I write in television with Chris, who, talk about working with yin and yang. Like Chris and I are kind of a version of yin and yang. And, so then once my mind was open up to that, and working with Chris has been very interesting because, he's brought more mess to the table. Yeah.
Oh. Did you base is there a character based on Chris?
No.
No, nothing.
Oh,
nothing.
no.
Nothing.
Are based on
Yeah. Well, that's what's the beauty of it. People can find themselves in every character. Yes, exactly.
I don't want to give anything away, but there's a couple of details that are so funny that I noted, and I want to know how you got the idea for them or if they're real. So one of them is somebody has a Sweet 16 party that is so over the top that there's a birth control bar. That's totally real.
That's my invention. I don't know if I Googled it to see if there has been one. There probably has been.
It's amazing. It's like, that's something that would be an Alina Dunham show. Well, that she would have like an abortion bar or something like that. I feel like take it even farther. Okay, that's a great idea. That's a great. You should find a way to monetize.
That's gonna be my next business.
Okay. Somebody had cloned their dogs.
So, okay, Chris and I were in a meeting once with a prominent television producer who casually mentioned that he had cloned his dog, and I was casually mentioned. And I was like kind of horrified because why the hell would you do that? I mean, what I'm a big believer in dog rescue. Even if why would you?
Sometimes you have that one dog.
It's I know.
Rex. I would have cloned Rex.
I feel that. I think about all of my dogs. I'm like, God, maybe I should clone you. But then I'm like, no, that is absolutely the line you do not want to cross. It's wrong. I find it immoral on so many levels. But I mean, like, I think Barbara Streisand, cloned one of her dogs like 6 or 7 times over, maybe. And it's like, what is that? What is
like inbreeding? Does that count as?
No, it's not inbreeding. It's cloning.
Right.
But I think that is a example of just an ultimate trying to control life. And is that healthy? I think not. But that's just my opinion. Maybe if anybody here has a cloned dog, I'm sorry.
No. See us afterwards. If somebody could, resurrect my old dog and then clone him, I would pay anyone. I mean, the thing too I was thinking about is like, so much this is about material objects. Like these are physical objects, and so much now obviously is online. And that was another thing with the fires that came up was, if you are under a certain age, I don't know what it would be, all of your photographs are digital. The idea of losing your family photographs really doesn't apply until you're over a certain age. And then for people who are older, it's everything. Like they've lost everything.
Yes.
And so there is like a real generational divide there.
Well, I think we all experience it. And in the book, I mean, Jane is constantly struggling with like the torrent of ephemera that's online and the constant bombardment of emails and and images and the text and online dating. I mean, so I think that's the world we all live in, for better or worse. And I probably lean worse, but what can you do?
But I wonder if the presence of that stuff is making people even more want to like order material things on Amazon, like that it comes to your house and it's in a box and you physically open the box and you hold it in your hand.
I think that might be true.
Yeah.
Because it's, we're just going through life looking for meaning, and where are you going to find it? Maybe there is no meaning.
Like in
but-
a shower spray that I ordered on Amazon because
There
I'm
you
too
go.
lazy to go to the store. I mean, also that anything can be on your doorstep. I mean,
Yes.
That's a huge change, which is so unhealthy.
Yes.
It's embarrassing. I mean, it's mortifying, actually. Every time the Amazon guy comes, I'm like, oh, this is the last time. Right. I'm not really here. I'm just doing research on getting.
Here's how
everything
I rationalize Amazon deliveries, though. It's good for the environment because you're saving a car trip to go purchase something and to shop, and creating traffic and smog and exhaust and carbon waste.
All right.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay.
I mean, you could just make one trip and buy everything on the one trip.
Is that possible?
No,
That's never possible.
Not at all. Okay.
I'm just wondering why, when you're bringing this up, I kind of find it offensive. I'm stuck in the 50s. Every time you buy something on Amazon, you're putting someone that owns a small business out of work. And I've lived in Santa Monica. I came out here with my parents, and it doesn't even look like Santa Monica anymore. It doesn't look like a beach town. And I have to contend, I live at 3rd and Wilshire by Michael's, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of movie stars. There's a party every night.
Yeah.
It's just really sad that you're crossing the street and people are looking at their phones while crossing the street and walking right into you.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just think all this technology and everything is just kind of sad because people really don't talk to each other anymore.
Yeah, I think we live in a world with a lot of physical clutter, material clutter, but also a lot of, internet, online clutter of just.
Do you feel like it's gotten worse?
Yes.
I mean, we were just talking about this. Like even in the last few months, I can't. Like it started. For some reason, like I finally let the software thing, like we're going to upgrade your thing overnight, and then it never does. But it finally did. And now it like categorizes, it's like your primary email and then updates and transactions and this. And it's horrifying. Like if you look at everything that's considered an update, it's just they're selling you something.
Yes. Yes.
And it seems it seems exponentially worse in the last 6 months.
I would say the irony, it's all in the name of like simplifying your life and make it easier, but often it does the exact opposite.
And the Chinese know all our business.
Yeah.
Every time you pick up your phone, you order something online or you call somebody, it's all, if you watch 60 Minutes, it's all recorded. They know what we like to eat, what we don't like to eat.
There's a lot of data being collected,
that's
for sure.
of privacy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's actually why it's great to have small bookstores. I mean, people do really love bookstores.
I love
Yes,
it.
I mean,
thank you,
seriously. I mean, and that's such a, bookstores are such an aesthetic, beautiful kind of aesthetic space. And so, it's just a good reminder.
Especially this one, because we have borders right on the mall, but they don't have people that speak anymore. If you don't know the personality and the insight, you're not really that interested.
Well, they don't tour authors the way they used to either,
I saw John Grissom in person, and he read just like you did tonight, and he's a very impressive person to begin with.
Yes.
Yeah, a big difference. Any woman's going to want to buy the book. I can tell you right away. He doesn't even have to open his mouth.
Do you want to do one last question?
Okay, we can do
Any
one
more questions?
One last question, or we could hang it up too.
Anybody? Any?
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Where does Jane come down on materialism? Because you can have a bunch of stuff and organize it really well, or you could just get rid of it.
She's very conflicted because in her mind, she's completely decluttered and she doesn't have attachments to things. But then she realizes she does. She's got this ADU where she's stashing all this stuff, and it does mean things to her. And part of what we'll see in the journey of the novel is that she's kind of understanding and decoding what her attachments to these various objects are, and will she be able to release them and move forward? So, yeah. Well, thank you. That's a great question. Well, thank you, everybody.
Right.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Thank you so much.
Books for purchase up here. Feel free to look around. I'll sign them for you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Megan.
You're welcome.
How long? How did we do? What's the time?
Perfect.
Okay, perfect. Right, we're watching the clock.
Really enjoyed that.
Thank you.
Great book. I can't wait to read it.
Oh, please do. I hope you enjoy it. Oh, thank you so much for coming.